It's taking a really long time. All right, there we go. So, okay, are we good? Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Chiyuv lahalvot kishechoshe shelo yachzir. Is there an obligation to lend someone money when you suspect that they won't pay you back the debt? She'ela, misha choshe shelo yachzir halo ve'et piraon ha'alva'a, ha'im gam ba'ofan hazeh yesh chiyuv lahalvoto? Do you have an obligation to lend someone money when you have a strong suspicion that they're not going to be able to pay you back? That's the question. So tshuva, kishahamal v'makir et halova, ubatuach she'oto adam lo yihi lo mimala hachzir. When you know the situation of the borrower, and you're fairly certain that he's not going to be able to pay you back, oh, sheyotzi et halva'a shelo letzarch v'yovdena, or that he's going to use the money you lent him irresponsibly, and he's going to blow it. Okay, as they say, he's got let's say he's got a gambling addiction, or he's got some kind of substance addiction, and he's just going to use the money, good over bad, or bad over good, whatever they call it. Um, uh, he's he, you want to try and bail out your friend, like the case I told you about, where yesterday, where the wife calls me and her husband has a gambling addiction, so they lost their house, and so they want to borrow money. So of course you want to help them, but you know that so long as the guy hasn't gone for help for his problem, he's just going to blow that money too. Ad shelo yimtza mimalagavos ischava. And so you're not going to be able to find anything from which to collect that debt. B'chi hagavna mutav shelo lahalvot lo mimashi yitztarech achar kach lenogso. Then in that situation, it is better not to lend him money, because that way you would avoid at least the prohibition of lo sielo kinoges. Do not be an oppressor. The yaver b'chol pamal al lo sielo kinoshed. You would violate being an oppressor. V'lachein amr Torah mitzvahs halva im kesef talva. And that's why the language of the Torah, when it begins the mitzvah, it doesn't say um, kisha talve kesef, but im kesef, if you lend money, meaning lefisha lifamim hi reshut uchagon keshulo v'velo mishalim, because sometimes you have to use your discretion. It's not an automatic that you shall surely lend money to your fellow Jew. You have to use discretion to see whether you should lend him money or not. Ela im ken yesh lo levakesh me hamalva mashkon or me hamilva mashkon o eravon kigon shek lebitachon o arevim v'rakaz yesh lahalvoto. The exception would be is if you could gain some security on the loan. So in that situation, then yes, you can tell your friend who has this gambling problem, if you can find either give me your house as security, or give me something else as security, or get me cosigners. Now, I would even go further. Let's say the guy is prepared to sign over his house to you.
Yeah.
Are you gonna still lend him money when you have a fair amount of certainty that he's going to forfeit his house? Where's he going to live? You're going to kick him out of his house. So you have to also, Ezehu chacham haro et hanolad, who is wise? He who sees the future. If you foresee that he's not going to be able to pay you back, even when he's willing to sign over his house to you, or some other valuable that he needs for his, just to be able to take care of his family, you still shouldn't lend him money if it's going to amount to that.
All of those things. If you get a cosigner, the cosigner's in the same difficulty you are. He'll have to pay.
Not necessarily, because let's say the cosigner is a family member, okay? And you can tell the cosigner, the reason why I need you to cosign on this loan is I don't think he's going to pay it back. Are you prepared to take that
Right, as long as you're
responsibility?
informed as well. It's like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I mean, you then obligated to give him some tzedakah?
So that's the last paragraph. He says, "Omnam mivakesh mimenu sikum katan." But if he's asking you for a small loan, yachol lahalvo lo kishu ani midin staka, then you can give him a loan if you view him as being destitute, as being a halachically an ani. You can count it, write it off, chalk it up as tzedakah. Va'afim lo yifra'enu yachol linakot zot mecheshbon hatzdaka shalom. And then if he doesn't pay you back, you can deduct it from
Yeah,
your
like we said.
tzedakah money. Yeah, like we said before.
Yeah, that's how the banks do their lending, eh? So they will send you a lot of equity, a lot of collateral, but they know the income, they won't give it to it, because they don't want to be taken over.
They don't want to be the bad guy.
They own the house, look like the bad guy. They won't do it.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they won't do it. You will get lots of equity, 50% down payment, if you don't have the income, they won't do it.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
That's when they go after co-signers.
That's the trouble, so moving on. The same, I'm sure, well, that Rico was out.
Even when 100% commission salesman, that's still a problem.
So, same thing. However, in the case of that, if you know the person is going to potentially use the money that he's asking for a loan, but who got the gains, whether it be substance abuse or gambling or whatever, they'll normally have an excuse as to why they, or reason why they have to borrow the money. I need to buy food, I need to.
Yeah, of course, they're gonna play the violin.
So if you were to say, let's go buy the food you need and I'll pay for it, all right? Knowing whether you're going to get the money back or not, at least you know that the family's being fed. Similar result. Right?
Yeah. So in those kinds of situations, it's better to say, I'm going to give you some money so that you can feed your family for a week. I'll buy your groceries or whatever it is, and then we're done. And then you're going to have to get your life together because, there are people in the community that will, and unfortunately, I've had to deal with these people because I make tzedakah distributions. Like I had to tell one guy one day, listen, I'm not your ATM. I understand that you have needs, but you have to understand that the Jewish community funds are limited. And just because you're tapped out doesn't mean that we have a responsibility to take care of your every need. There are other sources that you can go to, and you have to try to get your life together so that you can budget properly. And, okay.
Sometimes tough loans, of course.
Yeah, the problem is that sometimes there's a collateral damage. The family of that person can also suffer, and there's like a codependent relationship where they also buy into the delusion and into the narrative. Okay, Siman Hay. Next Shayla. Mitzvat aseh min haTorah lahalvot la'aniye achenu. There is a positive commandment to lend money to those of our brethren who are poor. Shenemar im kesef talvet ami et ha'ani imach. Again, he's not quoting the pasuk accurately. As it says, if you will lend money to my nation, the poor person with you. Umanu mone hamitzvos harambam hasmag v'hachinuch le'achad mitaryag hamitzvos u'mitzvah zu chova v'lo rishus. And they say that this is an obligatory mitzvah. It's not just an optional mitzvah. If all of the things check off, you have an obligation to give someone a loan. V'chafi shedarshu rabotenu kol im shebetorah rishus chutz mishlosha v'zeh echad mehem shezeh chova. Our sages even go so far as to say that even though the Torah says im kesef, if you will lend money to my people, really it's not an option. You have an obligation. And based on the context, we see that it is an obligation. Let's say a person has the wherewithal to lend others money, and he decides, listen, I don't give out loans. My policy, it's my money, I can do with it as I wish. My policy is I don't lend people money. I give a lot of tzedakah. I enjoy giving tzedakah to the charities of my choice, but I'm not going to lend people money. So the question is, Hayim over alav kagon kishadam nitzarich v'yesh bado lahalvos v'nin milahalvos. Am I in violation of this positive commandment in the Torah if someone comes over to me and asks me for a loan and I say, I'm sorry, I'm not that I don't lend people money. I've had too many bad experiences. I don't lend money. And even though you have the ability to give a person a loan, are you in violation of the Torah when someone comes to you and asks you and you say simply, no, thank you? Now, is it because you feel that you'll never get the money back? Well, there could be a fear, but you can overcome that by securing the loan. So that's not going to be an excuse, because you could say, well, are you willing to get me cosigners? In other words, you can create a scenario whereby you can feel secure in the loan. It's just going to be a big hassle. So are you in violation if you have to take that attitude? So let's see what the answer is. Tshuva, yesh mi she'omer shehanimna milahavo la'ani over bishnei lavin. So there is an opinion that says that if a person refuses to lend others money, then he is in violation of two negative commandments. Shenemar, hishamer lecha pen yiyeh davar im levavecha v'liya'al lemor, karava shanas hasheva shanas hashemita v'ra incha b'yochicha v'yon v'lo sitein lo. The Torah says, be very careful, lest there be something rebellious in your heart, where you will say, well, the Shemitah year is coming soon, and I don't want to lose out on this loan, because we know that at the end of the Shemitah year, all loans are canceled, all debts are canceled. So I'm not going to lend the less financially fortunate people in my community. I'm not going to lend them money. Okay, you may have that attitude, and the Torah says don't. You shouldn't have that attitude. The Yishamer upen in lavin. And when the Torah says the word Yishamer and pen, it's attaching two words that imply two negative commandments. V'im la'es asher karva shnas hasheva huzharnu shelo nachtol milalvos miyiras devar hashmita kol shekain bizman shelo yafsid chavo. And if the Torah is saying that you're in violation when there's a fear that Shemitah is going to cancel the debt, then surely when there's no fear that the debt will be canceled, you're going to be in violation. So how do we get around the Shemitah problem? With the Prose Bowl, right?
And I guess it was so rampant that people wouldn't lend, even though this says, don't be fearful, that the rabbis had to come up with that construct. I mean, people were not lending, I guess, and that's why the rabbis had to devise this way, am I correct?
People, right. The rabbis saw that people were failing to lend money before the Shemitah year, so they came up with the Prose Bowl. Hillel was the one who instituted the Prose Bowl. So, but the point, the argument that he's making is, put aside the issue of Shemitah. What you learn from that pasuk is that even when a person has a legitimate concern that the debt will be canceled through Shemitah, the Torah still tells him, don't take that attitude. Then surely when you don't have that concern, let's say it's only the first year of the Shemitah cycle, and I have no worries that the guy's going to pull the Shemitah card on me, then surely you're in violation when you fail to lend someone money because of that. So
you're assuming the person has the money, not he's gonna borrow money to lend money.
absolutely. The guy's got money in the bank, he's got savings, he's making a minimal amount on interest from the bank. So it's not like he's going to be losing a huge amount of money, but he says, that's not something I feel comfortable doing. So you have to realize that, but that's also part of being a Yid and living with other Jews, is that part of being a Yid is fulfilling this mitzvah. Okay, next. But of course, it's only an obligation if someone approaches you. If no one approaches you, then you're not in violation. Okay, so should a person seek out the opportunity to lend people money? Like, should he put out the word that I'm available to give loans? That's, yeah, it's a virtuous thing to do. There is someone who runs a gemach for loans in our shul, and they put in periodical announcements in our bulletin, and that's a virtuous thing to do. Do all Jews have an obligation to do that? No. It's only when someone comes to you and asks if they can borrow money, and if you have the money, and you can secure the loan, and then you refuse to do so, so that's when you're in violation of the Torah.
This apply only to people who are in need or even a business guy comes to you for a loan?
Yeah, the law of halva'a is not specific to aniyim, even though that's the language of the pasuk, but we learned before that it applies to both the wealthy and the poor. Yeah. Typically, your kids may ask you for a loan. So then you have to go back to, well, what if I know that my kids are not going to be able to pay me back? So then you're not under an obligation to lend the money. But if you can draw up legitimate papers and you get your son or daughter to take this seriously, and you say, here's what I expect is going to happen, that over the next 5 years, you're going to pay me back this $10,000 loan that I'm giving you, and I'll give you 5 years to pay it back, and you'll slowly, as you start earning income, you'll slowly give me a small percentage every month. Then that would be a wonderful mitzvah, and you're fulfilling the mitzvah of halva'a to your family members.
So Rabbi, when you sometimes parents post-secondary education, they'll make the kids put some skin in the game or whatever for that.
Yeah.
So really, you should fulfill it. You should write a shar or some sort of document for that, not just sort of give them money and have it understand they'll pay you back.
Well, it depends how you want to structure it. It all depends. It depends on the child. It depends on the situation. Like I know exactly what you mean. I just put down money for one of my kids' education, but I said I want to see, do you have any equity? Can you help contribute towards this? I told them I'm thinking $1,000 you should put into this. I'll take care of the rest. And so, I agree with you. I think, once a child reaches a certain age in their 20s, they should feel that they have skin in the game.
Well, I have situations where the parents won't pay for the education, university or whatever. But when you graduate with a certificate, I'll pay it. So that's skin in the game. So you have to graduate with a certain mark and then they'll pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's not, you have to work out. You have to work.
That's right. There's different ways to structure it. Yeah. Okay.
Why are you retiring in a couple years?
Am I retiring?
With all these kids and stuff? Just joking. I'm just joking.
I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. Yeah. Okay. She'ila. Ma ha'ta'am she'amru chachamenu zal she'asur lahalvot ma'ot below edim va'afilu l'talmud chacham. So now the next question. Why did the rabbi say that you're not allowed to lend money without witnesses or without paper? Right? And even if you're lending money to a Talmud Chacham, to a Torah scholar, v'chol hamalva below edim over mishum lifnei iver lo titein michshol. And when you do lend money without witnesses, you're in violation of do not place a stumbling block before a blind person. Ele imkein kishenotein lo halva ala mashkon o shemalva bishtar o shekosiv lo shtar biksav yado. The rabbis required that when you do make a loan, you use either collateral, so you take a security item in exchange for the loan, or that you use paper to make a record of the loan and the parties sign, or that the debtor has to write an IOU. Why did the rabbis make that requirement? Why can't you structure things more casually? And the answer is, Hatam shahamalva below edim over belifnei iver yesh omrim diyesh chashash sheyichbor haloive b'mezid. Some say that the fear is that the borrower who is in debt and cannot pay back the loan will deliberately lie and deny that he owes the money. V'nimsa sheba michshol al yado kishamalva below edim. and therefore you're causing the person to commit the sin of lying. Aval mishum chashash shichacha ein kan iser shalifnei iver ela shegarim hamalva klal la'atzma. Right? And so there's not a concern that the guy's going to forget about the debt, according to this opinion. Ein kan iser shalifnei iver ela shegarim hamalva klal la'atzmo, but the lender is causing himself to be cursed, or causing bad things to occur to him because he's caused another Jew to sin. So that's one approach. Others learn that it's not the concern that we're worried that he's going to deliberately lie and commit an act of true evil. The fear is that he's going to forget about the loan, and you're going to cause him to sin, not deliberately, by accident. Inadvertently, he's going to sin by not paying back his debts. And that's why the rabbi said you need at least witnesses, or you need some other kind of evidence. And then there's a third school of thought that says that really this is not a strict halacha. It's not that you're really in violation of the Torah. You're not even in violation of a rabbinic law, but it's the proper thing to do. So there's different attitudes towards this idea. Remember, we had learned when we originally learned this halacha that you need to have paper or witnesses or security. We had learned that if it's a small loan that you're willing to forgive if the guy doesn't pay you back, then you don't need paper and you don't need witnesses or anything like that. Guy comes over to you at Minyan and he says, listen, can you lend me a 20? I don't have any cash on me. And there's this guy that I want to give tzedakah to. So you say, sure, here's a 20. So you say to yourself mentally, this guy gets very distracted. He may forget about it. If he never gives me back the 20, I'm moichel, and the mitzvah of tzedakah will be mine. Okay? That's fine. There you don't have to tell the guy, write me an IOU. Before I give you the $20. But if it's a significant amount of money, such that you really want him to pay you back, so then you say to him, I'll be happy to do it, be happy to give you the $500 that you're asking for. Just do me a favor. Here's a blank piece of paper. Just write, I owe you $500, signed, and the date. And here's your $500, and that's what you have to do.
Rabbi, is there like that on the repayment? You also have to do with in old paper, receipt, that kind of thing as well.
Yeah,
for the same reason.
For the exact same reason. What if the lender forgets that the guy had paid him back, and he tries to live? It could happen even by accident, or he lies. Yeah. Okay, and he goes through a long discussion of the different sources of this halacha. Let's go to, did I send you the next packet? Okay, just give me. I think that there's one more packet before we go to.
One page in it, though. This last page.
Just give me 1 second. Yes. Yeah, so that's the end of that. And let's go then. So this brings us to the end of the first volume of Ohale Yaakov. Let's look at.
So basically, we're wrapping it up. What you're saying is lending money is a discretional obligation. So if somebody asks you for money, you're to weigh up whether a person's trustworthy to pay you back, and are they capable of paying you back or whatever, or is it something like the discretion is on the lender to sum up whether he thinks it's a viable lump sum. Would that be a fair sum? Would that be a fair summary?
You have to make a fair assessment. You can't just say to yourself, oh, this is the next. Let's see, he continues with the laws of halva. Okay, so we're going to continue with the laws of halva in the second volume. Yeah, you have to use your discretion, but you have to you can't be so dismissive of it. You have an obligation to lend someone money if the person comes to you with a sincere request, and you have to be able to assess that he has a good chance of paying you back. If you suspect he's not trustworthy to pay you back, then you still have an obligation to lend him the money and get security on the loan to a point where you're comfortable. Unless he's got to give up his house, in which case, then you have to realize you never want to be in a position where you're not going to be able to collect out of compassion to his family or whatever. Right? Okay. So this is, I guess, the beginning of volume 2. I'm not sure why they call it volume 2. I don't have the physical safer with me, so I can't tell you. Did I send this off yet? But did I send this out, the volume 2? I think I may have, I'm not sure if I sent it out or not.
Let's see if it- Doesn't come through yet.
Okay. Okay, so I may not have sent this out. Anyway, it's a positive commandment to lend money to poor people. So as it says, in kesef talve'et ami et ani ima. When you shall lend money to my people, the poor person among you. Yachol rishus, you might think that it's optional. Tamulomar ha'avei ta'avitenu v'gomer. Look at the context where the Torah says you shall surely give him security, etc., etc. Umitzvah gedola hi hatzdaka la'ani hashoyel shezeh kvar nitzrach lishol v'zeh adayin lo higia l'mida zu. So again, the language is corrupted a little bit, but what he's saying is that this is an even greater mitzvah. It's a greater mitzvah to lend money than it is to give tzedakah, because you're helping a person save himself from the humiliation of asking for a handout. And the Torah warns us against failing to lend. It is considered a positive commandment. Some say that it's from the pasuk that you have to make sure your brother shall live with you, which is the phrase where the Torah says you shall not charge interest. But before it says you shall not charge interest, it says your brother shall live with you, which is the indication that there's a mitzvah to lend him money, right? It's just then there's a negative commandment, you cannot lend him with interest. Okay. V'yeshamanu mitzvahs halva mehakasav avitavitenu ve'ein mevarchem al mitzvahs halva keder shemevarchem al shar mitzvahs she'over lasiyasan. He says you don't make a bracha before you give a loan, just even though there are other mitzvahs that when you do them you make a bracha before. For just like you don't make a bracha before you give tzedakah. And the reason why you don't make a bracha before giving someone a loan is because it's totally b'das hacherim. He has to accept the loan in order for you to fulfill the mitzvah. So anytime you're reliant on someone else's consent in order for a mitzvah to be fulfilled, you cannot make a bracha in advance, because you never know for sure whether you're going to be able to fulfill that mitzvah.
Even you know for sure, still can't.
You still can't make a bracha. There's a lot to discuss, but it's already late, so well, let's save this for next week. We'll see you, Mirz Hashem, on Monday. Have a great Shabbos, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Take care.